he would come through the door and I would be irate. And I just said, EJ, when I say the word burnt toast, that's our code word. When I say the word burnt toast, right, it's because, right, you can guess why. I kept freaking trying to get toast and coffee in the morning, and then I would forget because the twins would be crying, and I'd go down to like put that piece of toast, and by the time I'm like, oh, it's black now. So I said burnt toast, and that means I'm not good. I'm not good for you. I'm not good for me. I'm not good for our kids or our animals. Like, I need to take a time out. I would be like, who is my heart and what is this? That is not who I want to be, but that is how I'm showing up, and I've got to take my time out.
This is episode number 678 with Tarah and E.J. Kerwin. We are going to be talking today about how to heal trauma both in yourself and in your relationship, because if you don't heal trauma within yourself, especially trauma from your past relationships, your childhood, different parts of your life, you are going to carry it into every single relationship. Hi, everybody. I'm Sandy Weiner. Welcome back to Last First Date Radio, where we believe it is never too late to go on your last first date. I am a certified dating and relationship coach, and every week I bring you expert dating advice and real conversations about love, connection, and healthy relationships. So if you want more information on any of my coaching programs, my courses, my 3 books, just go to lastfirstdate.com. I want to invite you, if you're not yet a member, to join my big Facebook group. It is free for women over 40, and it's called Your Last First Date. And this is a place where you will get positive support. I am in the group almost every single day, and you will hear about new programs and new offers. I go live every single week in the group, so there's a lot of value. It's free. Join us at Your Last First Date. And now for my guests. Tarah and E.J. Kerwin are the founders of Relationship Renovation in Tucson, Arizona. They help couples build stronger, healthier connections through therapy and online programs. And they co-host the Relationship Renovation Podcast and a YouTube channel, and they share actionable tools rooted in intentional communication and empathy to support couples all around the world. Welcome to the show, EJ and Tarah.
Hey, thank you, Sandy. It's great to be here.
So happy to be here.
We're talking about one of my favorite topics. I mean, it's a hard topic, but trauma is something that so many of us do not deal with. And as I was saying before we got started, that one of my clients has been dating a lot of men who, well, not even getting to the date, because even on the phone call, there's so much trauma that comes out that they're quick to judge. They're like angry. So let's talk about some subtle signs. These were not so subtle, but some subtle signs that trauma is influencing somebody's current relationship, even if they feel they're moving on from it, or even dating. I mean, because a lot of our audience is still dating.
For me, it's an internal sign that I start to feel, I guess it's that feeling of walking on eggshells. Like I start to feel afraid of something, or I'm like not trusting something in my body, or there's this gut instinct that's like, what's happening? And I want to go into caretaking mode. That is like a sign for me, like if I want to caretake and I'm feeling this uneasy, like eggshell walking weirdness. I can't describe it any better than that. But to me, that's like something is happening and there's no, like environment to make sense of it. Like, oh, this is why that's happening. It's just this like internal feeling for me.
I mean, I think it's just like such an interesting thing, because trauma has been this like word that's kind of 20 years ago, 15 years ago, you didn't hear a lot about it, or if it was extreme. And we've kind of come into this new reality of, I forget who has the big T to little t, that really we've all suffered some level of trauma in our lives. And what we see with couples, with individuals as well, it's really about your nervous system. It's about something getting triggered where you become dysregulated, and like you had mentioned, like all of a sudden somebody's just like their voices raised and there's this aggressive tone, and you see it as like, oh, this person is like an angry, is an angry person, but really what's happening there is like when you notice somebody becomes dysregulated, when their breath becomes more shallow, when their eyes open up a little, there are just certain like very like visual of the body clues that say something got triggered. And it's confusing it enough when you're in relationship and it's somebody you care about.
Right.
But I think like in the dating world, it's even more so because it's like, well, this doesn't make sense. This is like our first date, and we were just talking about, something that seemed benign, and suddenly this person is activated. And I think it is like an important thing for somebody to just have an awareness about is that like, you are going, it is a vulnerable thing to go on a date, right? You're putting yourself out there, and it does sort of increase the likelihood that somebody might get triggered and some stuff might come out that you're not totally, ready or prepared for.
Yeah, it's somebody you're just meeting. You have no idea what to prepare for. That's scary itself.
Right. So for dating online, we have a little bit of an idea who they say they are. We don't always know who they actually are. And often it's a disconnect. Somebody will paint themselves as the most understanding, calm, totally chill person and be super uptight. I always get a little activated when I see somebody use a lot of those words because I feel like they're compensating for something. Or I'm looking for drama free. To me, sounds like they've had a lot of drama and they're blaming other people, so they don't want any drama. They hate conflict.
Yeah.
So we can tell a little bit if we kind of try to decode some of the words in a profile. But when somebody is triggered, so let's say you're experiencing somebody else's triggers or you're experiencing your own, what can people do when they have that sign of, like you said, Tara, I don't even know always what's going on. I just feel this dysregulation.
Right. So from my own story, I am like a ton of trauma, childhood trauma, sexual abuse trauma, emotional trauma, physical neglect trauma, physical harm, you name it. And I experienced it with my twin sister. Her and I experienced it together from our family of origin. And I had been really good at being a really great therapist, like being in really good, safe relationships, not quite ready to commit, but like, oh, and if that person kind of started to make me feel uncomfortable, I'd be like, oh, you're not the one, right? I was like a serial monogamist. So I had thought, I was like, God, I'm like a really great trauma survivor. Like I'm really resilient. And little did I know that I hadn't even touched the surface of processing my trauma until I got into a relationship with EJ, who was this emotionally safe person. We got married. I went from 0 to 4 kids in a year and a half because we got pregnant with twins on our honeymoon. And I became overwhelmed. No longer could I be in my 3-bedroom condo in Sabino Canyon with just 1 load of laundry a week. I was like with colicky twins, sleep deprived, angry at EJ for doing this to me, even though he didn't do anything to me. And that's when I really started to recognize something else is really happening. Like I've never felt more overwhelmed in my life. And that situation is already overwhelming. Colicky twins, blended family, quickly 4 kids under 5, right? In a year and a half. That's already. But there was something else because I had so much anger and resentment towards EJ, but I knew I loved him before the twins were born. And so one of the first things that I did, because I couldn't make sense of it, I didn't know what was happening. I just knew that he would come through the door and I would be irate. And I just said, EJ, when I say the word burnt toast, that's our code word. When I say the word burnt toast, right, it's because, right, you can guess why. I kept freaking trying to get toast and coffee in the morning, and then I would forget because the twins would be crying, and I'd go down to put that piece of toast, and by the time I'm like, oh, it's black now. So I said burnt toast, and that means I'm not good. I'm not good for you. I'm not good for me. I'm not good for our kids or our animals. I need to take a time out. And I don't know how long that timeout's going to be. Usually it was around 20 to 30 minutes. Sometimes I would just read an Us magazine and not try to figure it out because it just depended on the day or the evening or how busy I had been and how exhausted I felt. But a lot of the times I would turn on Tara Brach, her podcast. She's amazing with this RAIN technique, recognize, allow, investigate, nurture. And I would go through her RAIN, like mindfulness meditation, and I would be like, okay, like I'm really scared. I don't feel emotionally safe. Like I feel like EJ's judging me, like I'm not a good enough parent. Like all these things I started to recognize were happening in this one moment when EJ came through that door. And so for me, like just recognizing I'm not my best self, I will not say good things if I don't take a time out for myself, helped me understand something else was happening deeper. And that's, when I started to do all of the work that I needed to do and continue to do for our relationship and our family. I would be like, who is my heart and what is this? That is not who I want to be, but that is how I'm showing up. And I've got to take my time out. So code word for me, help me to not intensify and re-traumatize the anger and cycle that we had kind of created in that first year of having our twins.
I can't even imagine with all the unhealed trauma how it wouldn't come to the surface when you're stressed beyond belief and you're lacking sleep and your
I
kids
just thought it
never
was
sleep.
EJ. Yeah,
Right,
I just
it's
thought it was
somebody
all
else's
EJ.
fault.
Like, how dare you do this?
Right. I mean, it's very easy to blame somebody else when that's not the person that caused the issue. That's not the person you should be angry at. It's actually the person who loved you and you loved. But you had the awareness. So like something happened to get you to even recognize that you needed a timeout. Like, where did you get that from?
I think it was like the level of, I'm going to call it rage. Like I just felt rage. I'd never felt rage before. I would always learned if you feel rage, bad things will happen to you. Mm-hmm. Like there was so much anger in our childhood and so much abuse that and I think I suppressed rage my whole life. And so when I would have those rageful feelings, I was like, this is new. I've never felt this before. And I know EJ is this like amazing human. So maybe I don't have it all fixed. So for me, it was rage. I'd never felt it. I'd never put myself, or I'd never been in a situation in my life where it would even be conducive to it. Because I'd always picked such emotionally safe people to be in relationship with that I could kind of control in a way. Like they were emotionally unavailable in a way that was safe to me. And here's EJ, like another therapist, of course, I marry. And he's like, what's happening for you? And I'm like, what?
Well, I think it's like, I think it was disorienting for both of us. And I think that that's like what happens no matter where you're in like relationship with somebody, whether you're first meeting them or you've been together a long time, it's these moments where there's some trigger.
Yeah.
And a tool we use and we tell people frame is like, if you look at the trigger, which is just stimulus, it's just me walking in the door or me saying something or a look on my face, right? Like if you look at the trigger and then you look at your reaction to them, and if you put them on a scale and there's like and it's just out of balance, and especially if it's like significantly out of balance, like you've tapped into some deep pain and sorrow and sadness and confusion and all those feelings. And that was what would happen in these moments where it's like, I wouldn't understand like what's just happened. And then again, whether you're on a first date or whether you're deep in a relationship, there's a very high likelihood that if one person gets triggered, then the other person gets triggered, right? And that's where like the big T, little t things start popping up, is that like I did not have the big T's that Tara had. But in these moments, my little T's and mid-sized T's would get activated. And then I was going into my adaptive responses that were the opposite. She wanted engagement and like, let's figure out a way to deal with this. And I would pull away. And people do that. People do that, even in more shallow relationships early on in their relationship, where like somebody gets triggered in that first, second, third date, which is normal. You're gonna get normal with each other at some point. You're gonna have a reaction, and then the other person does, and then you're both reacting unintentionally to one another, and you're not connected, you're not vulnerable. And you can't work through it. And I think that's what's, I would guess, like, to your listeners is really complicated also is like, well, do I even want to deal? Do I want to work through very early on. I mean, because Tara and I had a honeymoon period where she wasn't feeling rageful towards me for at least 18 months. And so we had that to sort of draw back on, but we also had that to be confused about, like, how did we go from this, like, so in love and so connected to like, wow, like, what is happening? You want to divorce me, like, basically every day.
Well, and the thing like that, I mean, the reason why we started everything we have is because we're two therapists. So we were compelled to make it work and understand it. Like, I can't just walk away. Like, what is happening? I had no idea. And I had been a marriage therapist at that time for at least 13 years. I was like, what's happening? Like, this isn't how it was supposed to be. And so when I said to EJ, like, we're two trained professionals and we are having this hard of a time, like, we have to help our community. And that was the beginning of our, we have a counseling center with 15 therapists now, and all based on that first kind of trauma really hitting our relationship and then creating more trauma from it. That's the thing, like, we start to register the person we love that we want to feel the most safe with as a threat now. Like, EJ was a threat. He was a monster. I was like, I don't feel safe with you. And I really, truly thought it was him. And because he was judging me because of his little T's, and we put more trauma in from our other trauma. And it was like, how do we separate this, right? I mean, and we have to do this. And what EJ was talking about, we call it our couples cognitive relational restructuring, but it's that moment when a trigger hits and you go through, right? It's very cognitive behavioral therapy based, but you go through your thoughts and your feelings and your behaviors. And then you're like, what does this remind me of? What's the feeling? And you start to go very, back, like, gosh, I started feeling unsafe when I was like 6 and like this thing happened. And you start to realize that early on, negative core beliefs were developed right from your environment, whether you had trauma or not trauma. We have to make sense of the world when we're little. And if we don't have caregivers that are helping us make sense in a positive way, these negative core beliefs are at the root of our automatic thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. And so, understanding that, like, in those moments I felt unsafe, but then recognizing I'm an adult now, I am safe. EJ just looked at me weird, right? And then, right, having an adult voice, and I'm not that little girl anymore that's scared in that environment, right? I'm not saying it was just that easy. It was a ton of work. Now in those moments when I'm triggered, I can be like, I'm an adult. Like, I am actually safe. I've created an awesome life for myself. EJ's great. He's got his own stuff. We have compassion now. But it's like, because we were therapists, I was like, I've got to figure this out. Like, I help other couples all the time figure this out. Like, why is this happening to me now? But I'm so grateful it did, because we've helped so many other individuals, families, and couples now really work through trauma in a healing way instead of take it to the next relationship or medicate with it. Like, how can we truly feel whole, whether it's on our own or in our relationship, so we can be free? We all deserve to be free.
Let's take a quick break to hear from our sponsors. This episode is brought to you by Amazon Music Unlimited. You can listen to over 70 million songs and thousands of playlists and stations. Plus, you can now stream your favorite podcasts, like Last First Date Radio. You can listen to any song, anytime, anywhere, on any of your devices. Get Amazon Music Unlimited for free for 30 days. Just head on over to getamazonmusic.com/lastfirstdate to learn more and claim this offer. Thank you for sharing with us a little bit about your trauma, Tara. And like you said, EJ, we all have trauma, so it may not be the same level of trauma. I mean, I have clients who've had sexual abuse, who've had incest, who've had neglectful parents, alcoholic parents. I mean, it is so damaging, and we think we've got it all together. So often it comes out as we were successful at work and we do great things with our lives, but then the emotional stuff comes up when you get vulnerable and when you are in crisis. But you also mentioned rage, that you had never experienced rage because rage felt really unsafe. And this is something that's so common that people don't know how to express anger because anger was expressed as violence or
Yes.
something really unsafe and unhealthy at home. And I heard you, Tara, go from anger to sadness within just a few minutes.
Mm-hmm.
And so, can you just address for all those people out there who are suppressing and thinking they're doing fine by not expressing, how they can begin to think about anger a little bit differently and maybe learn to express what's really going on?
Just like you said, I thought anger was bad. You don't express it. If you express it, you're just like a monster, right? Or you're an abuser too. And I didn't understand until I had the safety of like a therapist, a trauma therapist who was like you said, there's no bad feelings. So what's happening? And like recognizing that that as a child, like I didn't have any power or control. My parents had all of it. And that's awful, right? Like, and bad things happened. And so of course, like children who can't make sense of it, they're going to feel like angry and powerless, but they don't know what powerlessness is, right? So then you mine was suppressing the anger by caretaking everybody, all my siblings and all of that. And so the first thing is like I started to have a ton of compassion for like my little girl who was scared. I survived. I started working at 8 to feed myself and my siblings. Like I just started to like be like, you're a badass girl. Like if you have this anger, you have the right to have, like I felt empowered in it in a really good way. And so I just started to think of like, because when I would get triggered, I would literally be like a little girl. I would feel scared and then like tantrum and like blamey. And so I just started to really develop this compassion for my younger wounded self, which was like, you can feel all of those feelings and also have like an adult self with it. Now being the parent, like it's okay. And like, I've got you and you're safe now and you can experience all of this. And I'll never forget, I started reading. Oh, she was the developer of EMDR, Francine Shapiro, and she had her first book. It's a self-help EMDR book, and she was like, where is your safe place? I remember it's like one of the first exercises in this book, because I was like, oh, I don't have time to go to therapy. Like, I'll just do my self-help. And I had recognized, like, in my whole life, I had never had a safe place. So I started to develop one under this amazing tree in the grass, and I'm wearing like a white shirt and my hair I got a really good picture of like this safe place. And then I would do all of my difficult work from my safe place. So it's just like, how do I have compassion for my wounded self? How do I know that all my feelings are okay? And how do I bring in my wiser adult self saying, you can handle it. I can handle it. I've got this. And that I cannot expect anybody in my life outside of me to regulate me. I mean, EJ could bring home flowers, make me dinner, do all of the stuff. That is going to do nothing to it. Great, thank you. That's not going to help me. It might in the moment, instant gratification, but the only way I can regulate my nervous system is by doing that internal work. And I feel like that was life-changing because I used to predict my environment to make me feel safe. Like, ooh, I'm going to like date this guy because he's super emotionally safe. And like, he has no idea about complex emotions because he came from the perfect family, like whatever it was. And so I don't know. I know that's like a long answer to the question, but it was the first thing was having compassion and grace for myself. Like, wow, I really am wounded and I don't have to caretake everybody else. I have to focus on me. Like, that's really important. And then going through the steps and all of the trauma work to really have the reparenting really of my scared, dysregulated nervous system self. Because whether it happened, and we say this a lot with our couple sessions and our coaching sessions, whether it was something that happened yesterday or 20 years ago, your nervous system doesn't differentiate. It just knows the feeling of it, right? So if EJ looks at me and that makes me feel unsafe, that reminds me of 25 years ago when I was being, hit with a belt, or I could hear my sister screaming. Like, that doesn't differentiate. It just knows the feeling of like something bad is happening. And so that's when I just know, like, that's a regulation piece right there. I have to tell myself I'm safe.
It comes right back.
It comes right back. And I have to say this too. I would not have been able to do the work, right? Like if I'm an individual not in a relationship, I felt like it almost would have been easier. But like I was in a relationship with my husband at the time when all my trauma was exposed, and like if he would not have developed that emotional safety for me, there's no way we could have still stayed together. Like he was in it too. He would go to therapy. How do I stop judging her when she's like looking so aggressive and crazy? Like I think, EJ every day because he had to create emotional safety too for himself, and he had to work on not avoiding, because he would want to avoid and go and leave and withdraw, and he thought he was being so like calm and chill, and I could sense his anger and rage underneath, but he'd be like, I don't have any. I'm like, yes, you do. I can feel it. So that EJ did that work too to help build that emotional safety so I could do my work. That was like amazing. I don't think I could have done that if he would not have done his own work as well.
It's like so ironic that we're drawn towards people who end up exposing or putting light on our own biggest areas of growth, our biggest, pieces of suffering. I mean, even just like hearing Tara talk about like how she would see me judging her, right? And I know it's taken me years like of learning and putting it together that like she felt like massively judged as a child. So not only did she have like all this like trauma happening at home, but then she goes to school and people treat her horribly and they judge her and call her names because of their, clothes she was wearing and all that. And so it's like, it's like it's so complex, and it wasn't just one little thing we had to figure out. It was like multiple things. And again, I'm trying to like draw it back to like the people who are listening to your show, which is, people dating and early on in their relationship, is I think also the way we date now, like it has this, it's like accelerated. Everybody puts their stuff out like so quickly. Like you're like, it's like a resume. And so I think also like people's stuff comes out, like that traditional, like kind of like what we dated, even though it's relatively recently, where it was a process over time and we were friends first and all of that. But I think there's like an accelerant that happens where people get triggered very early on. We see a lot of couples who have very complex issues in their relationship that happen very early on in their relationship, first, second date type stuff, but yet they stick it out. And then it's like, gosh, it's that, do you choose to do the work? Do I step out of my judgment and my uncomfortableness with conflict to own my stuff so that I can then support her?
And I have to say this too, because right, when we're in relationship and we're like, oh my gosh, that did not work out. So now I'm going to pick a person that totally is completely different from the person I dated. And they think, oh yeah, this is it. Because EJ would be like, Tara, like you are so different from my ex, right? Because when I met him, he had 2 young boys. He'd been divorced for a couple years. I can't remember. And if you don't work on your stuff, it doesn't matter how different the next person is, the same stuff will show up, because EJ was bringing his blocked stuff to our relationship. I was bringing the block stuff I didn't even know was blocked to the relationship. So it was just like eye-opening. He's like, you are completely different from my ex, yet the same
stuff is happening. So what's the common denominator for me?
Right.
It's me. Clearly I got some stuff that I got to deal with. Otherwise, I'm going to end up in the same situation.
And it's like, it's not out yet, but I'm actually working, because we have a ton of couples programming that we do, and the model we developed, which is Relationship Renovation. And it's this amazing process we take couples through, beginning, middle, and end, to really understand their attachment style and their families, you name it. We really dig deep. But because there's so many individuals we see in our practice that are like, right, how do you have a healthy relationship? I'm creating this like relationship ready, like relationship with yourself first, so that when you are coming in, because we all have our baggage, that we are going in with eyes wide open, so we don't get into a codependent, enabling, toxic place that we at least, right, we can't predict and plan for everything, but we can at least have this idea of like who I am, what are my boundaries, what is important. And I'm doing that right now because we have such a community like poll saying like, I don't even know how to be in relationships right now because it's just, I mean, I don't know if this is in Tucson, but like people are really struggling. Like I have clients in their early 20s, late 20s that are like, I don't even want to date. I see like what my friends are going through and it is a shit show and people just want sex or whatever it is. And I'm like, well, yeah, but you can't just like make a decision you don't want to date and not do the work about why that fear is. So yeah, it's just like something we're hearing from so many people in our community. So we're trying to develop systems for that as well, because ultimately, like, I mean, we want to have a sense of belonging with each other, whether it's with our families, but you know, when we're adults, our intimate partner, we want to have a sense of belonging and it feels really good, even though there'll still be uncomfortable times, that our relationship is not a threat.
Yes.
That is the most important. And 80% of our couples that we see, it's like, you're a threat, or it's either this or we're done. And it's like, oh, why does it have to get to that point, you guys? And then we help them untangle it all. And it feels really good to get them out of a place of fear to clarity to see if they can make that relationship work. But we're just humans. We wait for a crisis to happen. And then we're like, oh, okay, maybe, just maybe I've got something that I need to process.
And wouldn't it be great if people could do this work before the crisis, right? But often
Sandy,
the crisis
help me.
is...
I wish.
I mean, I have a couple that I've been working with. They both had very unhealthy past relationships, and she was ready to walk away after about 6 months. She saw a roadblock and she said, "Yeah, I think I'm done. Put me back online. I'm gonna just get it back." And I'm like, "Wait, let's talk about this. Like, is this a him problem? Is it a you problem? Is it the two of you? Or, you know, what is going on here?" They got back together and they just got engaged and they're very happy. Yeah, they're actually going to come on my podcast to talk about their experience, because it's not straightforward. You know, we come in and we have love and compatibility and chemistry, and then all of a sudden all the wounds come up and all the patterns come up, and the people pleasing and the lack of communication skills, and you don't even know your values and what's important to take a stand for and what's important to let go of, and so much that we bring and that we project onto somebody else. And I mean, so I love that you're doing this work for couples and helping them. And it's not too late, in my opinion, if there is a foundation for a healthy relationship, and also if both parties are willing to do the work. And you talked about your own relationship, that you're both were willing to do the work, because if one person just does it alone, it's so hard. It really, I mean, so
I mean,
hard.
it'll change some things, but like that just doesn't feel good. It's like, why are you the only person working? And one of the first things we have when you walk through our lobby doors is, our partner is our greatest teacher. Be patient for the lessons. Like, this is the person that will trigger me the most, but I can learn from the most if we, like for your couple, they're going to give it a chance. Don't just walk away if they're, and that's one of the first things we do with our couples too, explore their individual values and their couples' values to make sure that they have alignment, because you want to find where they are aligned instead of where they know where they're misaligned. Trust me. Like, we know where you don't want to go, you guys, but where do you want to go?
I feel like we have a very good sense early on in the relationship of what we want. Like, we have an idea of like who we want to start dating. I don't think we often know like what we want in a long-term relationship, right? Until things start getting bumpy, and then we know what we don't like in the relationship. And so we spend a lot of time just pointing our finger at that person, saying like, stop doing this, stop doing that. I don't like that. And then that just like pulls us apart, and it doesn't recognize that like, well, actually, like, just something about you is triggering this uncomfortable thing in me. And I can make requests. I can make like clear, kind requests. But if I just try to manipulate you in order to get you to create an environment where I feel the most comfortable, that's not sustainable. You know, it's not sustainable. It's not kind. It's not loving.
No, it's manipulation, which is not a healthy way to be in a relationship.
No, be somebody else.
Yeah. I mean, I've seen so many people, you talked about patterns before. All the people who come to me, we talk about patterns. We talk about the love blueprint from where we grew up, and we talk about values and the attachment style and all the things that you mentioned, because you need to know these things about yourself before you get into a relationship, and then to look for that in somebody else. And the more you know, and that's why I like working with older people, because they're generally more willing to do the work. They've done the work on themselves often, and they're willing to have the hard conversations that we may have avoided when we were in our 20s. I was working with a woman recently who was married to somebody who was extremely avoidant. Then she dated another avoidant who was had a lot of like really unhealthy habits, manipulation, gambling. We would come 5 hours late to a date. I mean, all this stuff that she never put boundaries down. And then the last guy who she was dating, she said, they're all so different. I'm like, are they though? And so it finally, I gave her a book to read about why we attract emotionally unhealthy people. And she finally started to understand, oh, I'm just attracting the same type over and over again. And it's like, oh, so I need to do some healing. It's not just point the finger, because it's so easy to go on a date with somebody and they'll say, my ex-wife was so rageful and she was crazy. And the woman says, oh, my ex was a narcissist, or, the wife was bipolar. It's like, wait, which came first, the chicken or the egg? And
It's so true. If I hear the word narcissist one more time, I'm telling you, it's like thrown around now, just like,
oh my God,
food,
everybody.
narcissist.
Yes, everyone's a narcissist.
I'm like, let's go back to early attachment wounds and really process that.
Yeah. I mean, look, our parents did the best they could, and often it wasn't very good. And we have the opportunity as adults to do the healing. So if there are people who are stuck in unhealthy cycles, what is one of the very first mindset shifts that you have them do to start the healing?
As simple as it is, I think it's looking internally. It's like, because oftentimes what the key signs are is that there's something. It's your job, it's a colleague, it's a date, it's a person you start dating. It's something else is triggering big feelings. Or you're acting in ways where you get done and you're like, oh, I did not like the way I responded to that, or I don't like that I'm drinking more wine or smoking more weed or whatever in response to this, what I'm going through. And then it's like it's that shift of like holding up a mirror instead of being just like, my job is messed up or my dating life is horrible or whatever. It's like holding up that mirror and like, what is happening inside for me? What are like the nuanced things, below, I mean, with men especially, I try to work with a lot of guys on 1 day a week, and it's like getting out of here and going below the neck. It's like, what are you feeling? There are some big cues that you're just like, you got a plate of metal between your head and the rest of your body. And just like, I'm feeling angry. Okay, let's like dust that off. What's under the anger? Well, I'm just overwhelmed. And then it's just like you just keep boring down deeper and deeper. And then in there's oftentimes just like some really vulnerable emotions you're feeling that you are ignoring, and then there's a lot of stuff you can do from that place. But for me, it's just like, it's creating a system of inward, gentle reflection.
I know from the time I was like a little girl, even though we had harsh, unsafe circumstances, like I always loved love and I loved being light. I loved that my grandma loved me so much, and she'd be like, Tara, you just light up the room. And I remember from a really early age, no matter how bad it was, like I felt light and love around me. Like that was my heart. I never wanted to, I shouldn't be alive. I really shouldn't. And somehow I am. And so I just keep thinking like, who is my heart? Like I know what my brain is, and it gets scared and I get anxious and I'm hypervigilant and I have horrible catastrophic thoughts that will probably never go away. I know how to manage them now. I want to make sure that people around me aren't walking on eggshells because I walked on eggshells. And I also know I have boundaries and I don't want to caretake, but when I start to feel like, oh, I can't handle this anymore, I'm like, but what is my heart? My heart is like love and life. And that's who I want to be. So it's a constant reminding, like, especially when I see people in toxic relationships, like that's not who they want to be. It's a symptom of something like awful and they don't have the skills to get through it. But like when you come back and you ultimately say like, but what is your heart? Like, who are you really? Who do you want to show up as? That's my daily, hourly reminder. No matter how busy I am, no matter how many dishes I have to do, no matter how much our new puppy pees all over, I just want to be a source of like healthy love and light for my family, for my community, for my clients, for our podcast. An example of like, it was skills that I went through all these things and I just thought, oh, like you just get through them, but it's skills. You have to have the skills to understand how to do it. And so many people think that they're broken if they need the skills. Well, look around. If there's something happening and you don't feel whole, there are skills to get there. It's not like some energy just comes in and like, here you are, you're whole. We have to figure it out. You have to do that internal work, whether that's just reading, whether that's journaling, there's so many, I mean, the therapy route, of course, we're big fans. Because you're held in a place of unconditional positive regard, right? When do you get to have that in your life? That's where you can really feel vulnerable with another person who feels like they can hold this space for you. That's why I love therapy. But yeah, it's like, who do I really want to be and who am I showing up now that makes me just feel shameful?
I love what you just shared. And I think that for me, when somebody comes to get support with me, with a therapist, they're already doing something that is a loving act for themselves. And these are the people who may have grown up in a terrible, destructive environment, but they've survived. And they're not only survived, they believe they have hope that things can get better. Otherwise, they wouldn't be there. And so I always look at them as the light in their family. Like often they're the only one who has risen. And it says so much about them and their internal resilience and their ability to be better in the world. So
I love that.
Yeah, I think about that a lot. I mean, I grew up in a very difficult home as well. Nothing like what you described, but not nurturing, totally not paying attention to feelings, needs, two very self-involved parents, and who did some very destructive things. And I look at my siblings, and my youngest sibling is just really struggles. He's just always struggled, has a lot of mental health issues. And for some reason, I just always also believed in healthy relationships. I wanted to get married. I wanted to have kids. And I don't even know where it came from. I think there is something internal that just draws us to do the work and then to be the light for other people.
I love that. I have goosebumps. Thank you, Sandy, because I feel like that's so me. And we call them change agents in the family. Like, you go, you're totally breaking generational trauma, but I like light. I love that. I feel like I might shift my change agent to like, you are the light, breaking generational trauma when we're doing our genograms with our families.
Yeah. There's a term in the Jewish tradition called tikkun olam. I don't know if you've heard this before. It's about repairing the world. That's what it literally means. And it's a Kabbalistic term that says that when the world was created, there was like a broken shards of an urn. I don't even know all the details of it, but basically that our job is to repair. And that we get to do the repair work so that we don't carry from generation to generation. And I love that. I think that there's so much beauty in the healing, and it's a ripple effect, the same as trauma is. So we get to have a different outcome.
It is like so interesting, like how many people there are like us who are, ordinarily we would have just been like therapists or, some sort of like, clergy work or whatever. But this medium we have with podcasting and YouTube and everything else is like, we're just out there like amplifying, and it comes down to like exactly what you're talking about is like this repair of the world. Is there so many people that are suffering? It's just like, it's just staggering, like, and you just see it driving down the street. You see, the anger. You see it in our culture, and you see it in the grocery store, and then we see it coming into the office. But it is like incredible, like how many of us are out here doing it, and how many different people we're connecting with, all the time. We're just, it's really cool. It's special, the ability we have now.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think it's sacred work. And
I agree.
which brings me to my final question, which is, what are your final words of advice for anyone who wants to go on their last first date?
Oh, that's a good one. Really get to know you and have that respect and those boundaries for what you're needing. I always also say have your invisible, I call it the shit shield, because we're vulnerable, and vulnerability can be scary, especially if we have trauma. And the invisible shit shield is like, right, here's my invisible shield, and I'm going to still have my heart with you, but your stuff's going to like get splattered on that invisible shield, not in me, because I have my boundaries up and I care enough about me to trust that I can handle this. And maybe this is something I want to handle, maybe it's not, but really trusting your own instinct that you can handle it and having healthy boundaries. That's it. That's all.
Love that. That's all.
That's all. Easier said than done.
I mean, I would have like a very similarly, just like said differently, is like you want to be able to have your hand on the control of your boundaries, of your shield, your just knowing what you're willing to say, not say, take, not take, and that you go into that date with control, and that you can read what's in front of you, and you can say like, oh, this actually, wow, this person is safe. Wow, this person seems honest. I can, that it's not just either here's everything or here's nothing, that you have that ability to modulate and be like, and throughout the date of being like, okay, this feels safer. Oh, wait a minute, that's not, I'm going to just raise it up a little bit, that because I think the more we have that ability to be nuanced, and that we also show that we have boundaries, the right people will respond to that. And a person who's cued into that and knows like, that was too personal for right now, so I will back up. That then you'll meet somebody who has attunement. That is like one of the keystones of a healthier relationship is attunement. This person is aware of me, and then hopefully they're responsive. And so to me, that's like so important. And we were lucky enough to be friends first. But then I remember on our first date, it was just like this effortless dance of fun, of like sharing, being aware, tuning in, learning more. I feel like at that point in our lives, both of us had that ability where we were sort of like deciding how much we were letting each other in, and it was really great from the beginning.
And it was our last first date.
It was my last first date. Yeah.
I love that. Yeah, you both mentioned boundaries and know yourself, and to know, like, we don't have to, first of all, spill everything on a first date. We shouldn't be. We shouldn't be oversharing, because that's a boundary crossing, actually. And just to modulate, but also be aware, like, their stuff doesn't have to get into you.
Yeah.
You could be the Teflon or the shit shield or whatever you want to call it, that you don't have to take it in. And I think so many of us just absorb everything. And I once heard observe, don't absorb. And that's one of my favorite things. It's like, we just can look, we can observe it, but it's not ours to take on. It's not ours to fix. I used to get into therapist mode when I was on dates too. I'd be like, yeah, I can fix you. Let me tell you what you're doing wrong. Don't do that. So yeah, I think that the more we know about ourselves, and the more we can then protect what's important to us, and be open-hearted because we've done the work. We don't have to walk around with big shields around our hearts.
I am enough. Even if you're going your first date, because like we get so anxious and it's like, oh, they're better than me, or you're feeling intimidated. Like have that little piece of paper, like I'm enough and I'm deserving. Like don't ever let anyone else have more power than you, because you're enough, right?
Yeah, that enoughness is hard for people, but yes.
I know.
All
I
the
have it like
worthiness
on my
wounds.
mirror. I have it on our walls. I am enough.
I love that. Well, you guys are wonderful. I know that you
Thank you.
have
So are
a
you.
quiz, a free quiz on your website. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, it's called the Emotional Safety Assessment, and it's just a great tool. Of it can be about you and your relationship, but it could easily also be about like how emotionally safe do I feel in this world. And so when you go to relationshiprenovation.com, it's the first thing that'll pop up, and you just click like take the quiz, and take you like 3 or 4 minutes, and it gives you some really good insight maybe into like what's going on in your life.
Great. Well, thank you so much for coming on the show, for sharing your own personal stories, and for doing the amazingly beautiful work you do in the world.
Thank you, Sandy.
Ditto to you, and that you're kind of in that, well, I know you work with couples, but being able to do what you're doing and kind of getting people ready in a healthy way for relationships and healthy, like thank you for all the work you do, and the energy that you bring even in our remote session has been awesome. So I know that you're doing awesome work. It's been great to meet with you.
Thank you. And thanks everybody for listening. If you love our show, please give us a high rating and review on Apple Podcasts. I think you can also review us on Spotify, share the podcast with your friends. And as always, here's to your last first date. If you are ready to get unstuck, gain new tools, become more empowered, and finally find your last first date, I'd love to talk to you. Fill out an application to be considered for a complimentary half-hour love breakthrough session at lastfirstdate.com/application.